Visit oaklandtransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you across the Sunshine State on FM and AM and around the world on our podcast and video stream, our website, aneighborschoice.com. And we're dealing with the aftermath of the first presidential debate for 2020. Wow. Very, very reflective of the 2020 year, the whole thing. But we're going to dive right into the issues that you don't hear on the old corporate press. And that includes issues like criminal justice reform, something that I thought was the elephant in the room that was not properly talked about by the moderator or the candidates, for that matter. So joining me now is a friend of the program for our regular look at the world of clemency, the world of criminal justice reform, is our friend Amy Povah of the Can Do Clemency Foundation. How you doing, Amy?
Fine. Thank you, David. Happy to be on.
Yeah, and it's great to hear from you. But I did think it was noticeable that nobody brought up the First Step Act and the significance of that bill, the significance for the folks who are in the middle of a pandemic. You know, we heard a lot of, tear-jerking type talking points from Joe Biden, but nobody mentioned about the folks that many have been locked up by Biden who can't get out during this pandemic he's so scared about, right?
Correct. And frankly, our prison population, federal prison population, is at all-time low, not all-time low, but since the 90s, it's now around 154,000, down from over 200,000, and that's greatly due to the First Step Act.
Yeah. So that wasn't even mentioned once. So it was a missed opportunity, it was an elephant in the room, and we know that there are people right now who can't socially distance, they can't get proper hygiene, they can't get proper sunshine, they don't get proper nutrition, and they're in the middle of a pandemic where they can't get proper sanitation and everything. And we have a guest with us who we've had on the program before. She also works with you at CanDoClemency.com. Anrica Caldwell. How you doing, Anrica?
Hi, how are you, David?
That's great to hear from you. I'm doing well, and I wish we could have some good news sooner because we need it with your story. Tell us, for those who haven't heard your story, your friend who is still languishing in prison. He was received clemency by Obama, but he's still not out, right?
No, he isn't. My fiance, David Barron, was commuted in January of 2017. He was the last on Obama's list to be commuted. It was a very bittersweet commutation due to the fact that he had a life sentence plus 20 years, and the Obama administration reduced it to 30 years. And for David to be 55, that is virtually a life sentence because he still has about 13 more years to serve. So that's where we're at. And I agree with the sentiments that was stated earlier in regards to a missed opportunity last night because, as we all know, criminal justice reform is a little bit larger than what we oftentimes or how we oftentimes hear it to be. There were some great things that I believe President Trump has initiated, such as the First Step Act, and that would have been a grand opportunity to showcase that aspect. Also, it could have been an opportunity for him to really show where Vice President Biden had kind of dropped the ball back in '94, and during his term, he still did not strive to make it any better than where he had started in '94. So I just feel like last night could have been an opportunity to showcase people like David, who is still languishing in prison due to the fact of the Obama administration's clemency initiative, which, by the way, was, I think, a wonderful opportunity, but yet for some it was a bittersweet opportunity as well.
So, Amy, why is this not getting more attention? To me, it's an obvious, huge unifying story to talk about the First Step Act, to talk about getting folks out of prison for nonviolent first-time offenses like David Barron, especially in a pandemic. It's like it lights a fire on us to get them out sooner, and yet, for some reason, it's not talked about, and it's an utter shame, because this is an easy, low-hanging fruit opportunity to unify people on something that feels good and is good. It is really good.
Yes, and I went to the Obama administration White House 3 times. I've been to the Trump administration White House 4 times. The first time was to go because Jared Kushner had kicked off prison reform, which was First Step Act. And, this was his baby. And it was really a Herculean effort to get it passed. And it was signed into law December 2018, so roughly 2 years into the Trump administration. And sadly, during 8 years of the Obama administration, criminal justice reform just wasn't a priority. In his second term, President Obama launched Clemency Project 2014, which was a well-intended effort, but those of us who are in the clemency space, clemency experts, people who've devoted their entire lives, or at least careers, to clemency, like myself. I've been focused on clemency since I received clemency from President Clinton in 2000. We knew it was going to be problematic because the Department of Justice has last say as to which petitions go over to the White House. And sure enough, early on, we saw that some of the best candidates, like Alice Marie Johnson, like several people who are on our website, nonviolent offenders, who fit the criteria, were getting denied. And that's because the Department of Justice gives top priority to what their prosecutors say. So there's a lot of talk about the trial penalty phase these days. Alice Marie Johnson just launched a video about the trial penalty phase, which means you get crushed if you exercise your Sixth Amendment right to a trial. Also, prosecutors seem to hold a grudge if you go to trial. David Barron and most of the people on our website are all people who are serving 20 to life because they went to trial. And for some reason, prosecutors seem to be vindictive, and when they're asked whether candidates should receive clemency, they will often give a unfavorable recommendation. And so those cases often never even make it over to the White House. But in David Barron's case, we noticed at the end of the Obama administration's clemency initiatives, all of a sudden they started commuting sentences from life to 30. So President Obama went down in history as granting what they said was historic 1,715 commutations. But what people don't know is that he got credit for that number, but in fact many of them were just sentence reductions, which is not actually a commutation. So back to the debate last night, there's plenty of video of Joe Biden when he was senator, and he was a rabid dog. In fact, he said that Reagan wasn't spending enough on the drug war and on the tough on crime policies. He was saying we should lock them up, call them super predators. I do think there was a reference to that last night, back during that era, was for the 94 crime bill. President Clinton has apologized for the 94 crime bill. To date, Joe Biden still hasn't apologized for it. So yes, I think it was a missed opportunity. And the Trump administration has said many times this was called first step for a reason. They want to follow up and do more criminal justice reform. I felt that wasn't a question because this is a huge issue that affects so many lives in this nation.
Right. Yeah, I hope that this is something that can be put front and center in future debates. Anrica Caldwell, can you tell us any update on David Barron? How's he doing? And is there any efforts we need to know about that we can be aware of or help with him?
Well, right now, due to the fact of COVID, David has, like everybody else, has not seen any of his family members, including myself, since March 13th. There was some cases in FCI Loretto where Paul Manafort was released back in April. And they kind of, I guess you would say they were able to, excuse me, clamp down on it, so there were no deaths or anything of that nature, but there were a few positive cases that had scattered throughout the prison. So there was some lockdown activity that had taken place the last couple months. They're starting to loosen up on some of the movement within the facility. However, they have stated that they might possibly go on some type of lockdown due to the fact of the community outside of Loretto has spiked in some cases. As far as Dave's condition in regards to coming home, we have tried things like the home confinement, and due to the fact that he only had 40.6% served time and that he was told he had a low pattern score, not a minimum, which every time I did the scoring, it came out minimum. In fact, he has a century score, and what that means, a score of where you would be placed in regards to your risk, you being a risk. He's a 6, which is like zero. What is it, Amy? 0 to 12. You're like considered camp points or what have you. So basically, Dave is like at the very low end of being a risk, yet they told him he did not qualify for home confinement.
But Paul Manafort did.
But exactly, but Paul Manafort did. And it was ironic because though Paul Manafort's wife and I were not friends, we spoke occasionally and we sat by each other with our loved ones occasionally. And,
in the visiting room.
Go ahead, Amy.
No, in the visiting room. Right.
Oh, in the visiting room, yes, in the visiting room. But at the end of the day, I feel like my loved one is just as worthy as Mr. Manafort, to be released based on his history as well. So that was a very bittersweet moment when that took place too, because if Paul Manafort is worthy, why isn't the average American who fits the criteria? Well, probably their criteria is probably even more extraordinary than Paul Manafort.
Yeah, we're going to keep following this story, and we really appreciate you coming on, Anrica. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll continue on this Can Do Clemency Hour, this segment we have now. CanDoClemency.com is the website if you want to follow what Amy, Povah, and Anrica are doing. That's CanDoClemency.com. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Weiner. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less, delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hot snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. Fastfreshseafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
Here's something every American ought to have. Really honest U.S. gold money. And now it's possible to get some specially priced from GovMint.com. Just call 1-800-386-7194. A limited number of gold Liberty coins have been released for sale. Folks, this money means something. Struck from U.S. gold, this money's got real heft. Value you can weigh in your hand. American history you can hold. Gold Liberty's over 110 years old, preserved in uncirculated condition. Actual solid gold Liberty coins from the California Gold Rush era. Coins so limited and priced so low, you can only get 3 per household. To find out how to secure your coins at this exceptional government price, call 1-800-386-7194. Call now, and we'll give you a free gold guide plus a bonus Patriots pack, including a 100-year-old U.S. Lincoln cent, just for calling. Call now to get you a free gold guide, including an actual 100-year-old U.S. Lincoln cent, valued at over $10. Free. 1-800-386-7194. That's 1-800-386-7194.
My name is Abe Lincoln, and I've been thinking there's a website this country needs to know. It's official government information, from job listings to student loan applications, and the name of the website is USA.gov. What's a website?
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option. Monetary metals. They pay interest on gold, in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice, broadcasting all over FM and AM around Florida and worldwide on our growing podcast and video stream. And we're doing our clemency segment. We do with Amy Povah of the Can Do Clemency Foundation, their website, candoclemency.com. And we have a special guest with us, someone that Amy can introduce here. We have Shalana McFarland. How you doing, Shalana?
Hello, David. How are you?
Great. It's great to have you on the program. Amy, could you give us a little introduction for Shalana?
Certainly, yeah. Shalana is somebody that the Can Do Foundation has been advocating for dating back to the Obama administration. She was actually given an attorney by the Clemency Project 2014 Clemency Panel that Obama created, which means she had to meet all the criteria in order to be given an attorney. So everybody had a reasonable expectation, if they met the criteria, that they would receive clemency. But ironically, Shalana is still waiting for her clemency, and I'll let her speak since we're kind of behind the curve here because she's on home confinement. She was at Coleman, which you know was on fire with COVID, and fortunately she was one of the few that was determined by the Bureau of Prisons to be eligible to go on home confinement. But she has a lot to say about that. So, Shalana, why don't you take it from here?
Thank you, Amy. I think what I want everyone to know is that, first off, I'm extremely grateful that I was one of the lucky ones that made it out. Coleman has, as I'm sure everyone in the Central Florida area is aware, has numerous problems. On the day that I left, there were 213 women at Coleman. And as of today, the population count is 180. So I left on June the 9th. So in that time, they've only released 33 others. All of the offenders at Coleman are nonviolent. Most of them are first-time offenders, low level. As you're aware, Coleman has no fences. It's a camp. So the women basically self-incarcerate. So all of these women could be at home serving their time like I am. I have an ankle monitor, and I will serve the remainder of my sentence on home confinement. So for some reason, there's a mistaken perception that they're just allowing people to go free, and that is not the case. My sentence does not expire until September the 7th of 2030, which means that I would have roughly 10 years of wearing this ankle monitor, which is why I'm praying that my clemency will be granted. It is a sad situation because some of the women that have been allowed to come home are now being forced to pay for their ankle monitors over $100 a month in some cases, even though they're still technically in BOP custody.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you're at least home, Shalana. We need to have you completely given clemency, as far as I'm concerned. It seems to me you shouldn't have to be having that ankle monitor for 10 more years for a nonviolent crime.
Well, also,
100% agree with you.
She can't be employed, and the people who are being asked to pay, who's supposed to pay for that? When you come out of prison, you don't have a car, you don't have a place, you have to stay with family, and you don't have any assets, you don't have money in the bank account. So it's a hardship on the family members. And Shalana, explain how you can't even get your teeth cleaned.
We are not provided the same level of medical care that we would get if we were still in prison. And the level, don't get me wrong, the level of care inside the prison is substandard by all means. However, our medical costs on the outside, I was told that I can only have emergency dental care, meaning I can go and have a tooth pulled, but there's no cleaning, so we'll not pay for that. I can have them pay for my prescriptions for my medicine, but anything outside of chronic care, I have to pay for myself. And it is very difficult with COVID because a lot of families have family members that have been laid off from their jobs, and it is really, they're happy to have us home, but at the same time, you don't want to be burdensome to your family.
Well, Shalana, we're going to continue to follow your story, and I'm glad that you're home. We got to complete your journey of freedom, and that you could be a role model for others that can get their freedom back, because we need a time of liberty. We need a time of family. Thanks again for both of you joining me. CanDoClemency.com. Check them out. CanDoClemency.com.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. Yeah, madness of 2020. Weekdays 11 to 2. I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable. Get it straight from Chris Bryant. There's stuff hypocritical that makes me sick. It's the Chris Bryant Show. This has just got me going off. And the left is waging war against the police in the United States. Telling it like it is. You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason and see a video. The Chris Bryant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHB.
So
President Trump backpedaling a bit when asked today by reporters about the Proud Boys, a group linked to white supremacy he appeared to endorse during last night's debate.
I've always denounced any form of any of that. You have to denounce.
Democratic nominee Joe Biden's take?
Cease and desist. Cease and desist. The American people will decide who the next president of the United States will be. Period.
Biden on a train tour of Ohio and Pennsylvania. The Presidential Debate Commission says it's going to make some changes to future formats to avoid a repeat of last night's disjointed first debate. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin talking today about another COVID-19 rescue package for the first time in more than a month. An apparent drive-by shooting outside a funeral home in Milwaukee has left 7 wounded. Stocks end a volatile month by closing higher. Daria Weiner, ABC News.
A Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm your host, David Gronowski, and we're soaring high across the Sunshine State on FM and AM, where they don't have the ability to censor our FM and our AM signals. The little clowns at Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, they're trying to make sure they massage the conversation as much as they can for the perpetuation of war, welfarism, bread and circuses. And that reminds me, we had a debate last night, so we're going to get our guests now to comment on it. We have the president of Monetary Metals, Keith Weiner, with us. How you doing, Keith?
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm doing well. And did you hear that plug for Monetary Metals in the debate last night?
I did not.
It was a meta plug. It was basically like, are you sure you trust the government with your dollar?
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know about the debate, but I have something really controversial to say. I heard your tagline about the Sunshine State, and I was thinking, I live here in Arizona. We have more sunny days than you do in Florida, so there.
Oh, is that so, huh?
115 sunny days a year, according to the Chamber of Commerce, buddy. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, Keith, there's a reason why they come to the Sunshine State. That humidity is so good for the lungs. You don't want to be in that dry, arid air. It's not hospitable for life. And you also got to remember, our tangerines hold up any day over Arizona citrus. We'll do a taste test.
Just keep your mouth closed, otherwise those palmetto bugs will fly in.
Well, so what did you think of the debate, Keith? Did you hear what you needed to hear?
I posted to Facebook yesterday morning, and I said I predict that it will be all the sound and all the fury signifying nothing. And I resolutely did not watch it. And I watched after the debate on Facebook, as all my friends confirmed, that I was correct. It's full of sound and fury signifying nothing, and that's my story, and I'm going to stick with it.
So, Keith, on this segment, I really want you to do your best to give us your most optimistic case for America's economy. Can you do that?
My most optimistic.
Yes. I know that you are a rightful critic of our Keynesian-based consumeristic economy that is centrally planned by the Federal Reserve and the regulatory state. I know that you rightfully critique the debt that we've accrued, that you've critiqued especially the interest rate setting, the fixing of the price of money that the Federal Reserve does. But given all of those handicaps, I want you to make the best case for how we can overcome those handicaps that have been put into our economy by our state, by the federal government, and by the political class that has no interest in really downsizing their parasitic efforts.
Well, I think there's two ways I can go with this. One is if we stay on the current course with the current thinking and the current politicians, and the other is, Monetary Metals is trying to make it profitable to invest in the gold standard. So the other way to answer the question is if we're actually successful and we've got gold bond projects for several state governments and other sovereign governments around the world, which way do you want me to try to answer it, or should I give both?
Well, I want to know, is there a way to unleash the market innovations in energy and medicine that could overwhelm the anti-civilization forces of government intervention? That's what I'm always looking at.
You know, I have to say, I always believe there's hope, and you know, you don't know what the future is going to bring. And you know, I'm a big fan of Tolkien, you know, Lord of the Rings, and one of the themes is just when things seem completely hopeless, you know, things turn around, and that was certainly, you know, in Tolkien's life, he witnessed World War I and World War II, and that's, you know, things seemed really dark, and then, you know, the Allies were victorious and things got better. And so in a certain sense, I believe in that. At the moment, the fact that we have these two socialists, I will say that word, both for Donald Trump and obviously for Joe Biden, the fact that these are the best candidates that both parties could respectively bring is you know, is a testament to where the culture's at, you know. I certainly think there's a lot of things. I mean, there's some actions to rectify things that will be hard. And I get that there's very little political will for those things. But there's some actions that are pretty simple. I mean, there's all kinds of regulations that if you just eliminate them. So, for instance, you know, you can't sell a COVID vaccine without, you know, being approved by the government regulators. And I know that they have all their stated reasons why they're protecting the plebes from the evil, greedy, filthy rich pharmaceutical corporations. And they always gin up that class warfare rhetoric. But, you know, there's certain things you could just repeal that, and you could unleash an awful lot of innovation and wealth creation. And, of course, the faster you're creating wealth, the longer you postpone collapse, because the collapse is due to wealth consumption and wealth destruction. So if you increase the rate of wealth production, then you give us, you know, many more years to decades of time and opportunity to try to right the ship before the final crash against the Titanic. But right now, I'm not really sure I see a great deal of will, you know, to any of that. Whenever a corporation gets in trouble with the regulators, you know, either people are indifferent to it, or they're cheering on the regulators against that big, bad, evil, greedy corporation. So, I hate to
You're not doing a good job on the optimism, Keith. We got to keep working on it. So because here's my thing. Okay, imagine that you have, because I want to give tangibles. So imagine that whatever timetable, say it's 50 years, 100 years, whatever. But imagine you wake up and there's a world where we can knock out the chronic illnesses that are plaguing our economy with the sick care system we have. Imagine that we figure out through scientific research, non-toxic, very, very cheap in terms of you don't need insurance or government to pay for it, to afford, solutions for diabetes, hypertension, Alzheimer's, cancer, you know, all the different problems, Alzheimer's that people are worried about. Imagine we can knock out the vast majority of those chronic illnesses with some real market-driven, very, very, very inexpensive solutions. And imagine that's what's happening. Imagine you've got energy too cheap to meter. You've got nuclear fusion power plants in every small town powering energy. It's so cheap they don't even bother to meter it barely. It's barely any cost. Imagine you've got a world where you got 24/7 solar panels, so your TV is covered with these panels that are harvesting energy 24/7 around the environment. And imagine that you have a transportation revolution where you don't have to take 6 hours to get across America. It takes maybe 30 minutes. Now imagine all of those things, and I know it's kind of, we're being a little bit, hypothetical here, right? But imagine that those things are actually happening, just to take those three things. How does that change the calculus for our prosperity, despite all of the luggage of the bad political debt and malinvestment that we have had?
Well, that's the reason why life is pretty good and very rich right now today. we've had, stayed with government for a pretty long time, and scientists keep developing new, either new scientific theories or at least new applications. Engineers keep perfecting, products and motors and all kinds of things based on that, and entrepreneurs keep raising some capital and working with those engineers to bring new things to market. There is a supersonic airplane company that I'm aware of and somewhat follow, because the CEO and I think founder is a relatively prominent libertarian or objectivist, and that's Boom. The company's called Boom, and they're talking about supersonic air travel, for the same price basically as business class right now. So, New York to Tokyo in 6 or 8 hours or something like that. And, I am an optimist and I love this stuff, and I'm hearing it and saying, yeah, bring it. I look forward to being able to fly to Asia. So that's 6 hours from New York. So imagine from where I live close to California, from LA, that maybe that would be 4 hours.
But
it's almost doable to go to Asia for a meeting and come back.
Imagine
that's fantastic.
Right. Imagine they do their voodoo economics and they kick the dollar crisis can down the road decade after decade, and then those things come about at the time that the dollar crisis is about to happen. And I know I'm giving kind of a very, quick summation of things that are very complex, but I'm trying to understand, is it possible to overcome the pain of a dollar crisis or what have you? You know what I mean? Can we overwhelm that with, because when I look at the things that are plaguing us, two big things are transportation, energy, and healthcare. Those are the things that government uses to always kind of like, act like a toll troll that's always collecting their tolls. And if we could break through those things with some tremendous innovations of knowledge and technology, would that overwhelm the kind of potentially third world conditions that we might have coming to us if a dollar crisis comes, within a generation or whatever? See what I'm saying?
I don't see it as overwhelming. I see it as, think of it as a race, and one of the runners is capital consumption, capital destruction. And as he gets going, he accelerates and his speed keeps increasing exponentially. And that's the falling interest rate that, that's the dollar-fed regime. And, the guy that's racing against him is wealth creation, capital, wealth production, capital creation. And, as long as he doesn't get too far behind, he can keep the game going indefinitely. But the guy who's creating the wealth has to keep up with an exponentially accelerating destroyer. Because if the destroyer gets to the finish line, that means all the consumable capital is consumed, then things collapse. But if the producing guy is also running faster and faster and faster, then, then you can keep it going. And I think this is why Adam Smith said there's a great deal of ruin in the nation. And he observed nations imposing ruinous policies, and that, they didn't collapse right away. And, part of it is there's a great deal of capital stock that's been accumulated. And also partly, even under ruinous policies, there's still productive people that are coming up with ideas and generating new wealth, and much faster today than they were in Adam Smith's day, too. So yeah, that could kick the can down the road, maybe several more decades. So in that sense, yeah, it's an optimistic, thing. But it's never a change the dynamic. It doesn't change the nature of the game. It just changes the speed with which we approach the end. The more wealth that we're producing, the slower that we're moving forward towards the abyss at the end.
What is the abyss?
Long enough, then you can say, well, it's good enough. But
what's the abyss in this analogy?
The destruction of all the capital that supports that civilization.
And that destruction is caused by the over leveraging of the debt, right? There's too much debt. You got to pay it off.
Well, it's caused by the falling interest rate. So every time the interest rate drops, that's a perverse incentive that encourages more borrowing, but it's increasingly, it's not borrowing for doing something productive. It's borrowing for speculation. It's borrowing for economically destructive activities. But in a free market, if those activities begin to accelerate, the interest rate would go up, not down. And the rising interest rate would curtail those activities. But when in a central planning regime, the interest rate's falling for a variety of reasons, and it doesn't change when those activities, accelerate.
Mm-hmm. So, is it your opinion that you have to pay off the debt, that all the debt that we've accrued with the Federal Reserve, that has to be paid off, or can you just cancel that debt in a jubilee, since these banks have been...
Yeah, everybody likes to think, okay, you could cancel it, but the other side of the debt is somebody's money.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody who says cancel the debt, I'd ask them, how would you feel if they canceled your bank account? And then, by the way, also cancel the bank account of your employer, the bank account of your pension fund, the bank account of your annuity if you have one, the bank account of your insurance company, the bank account of the grocery store that's trying to order new groceries so that you'll be able to buy something tomorrow or next week. Those are canceled everybody's bank account.
But isn't a lot of that money fractional reserve banking based? They just it's computer money derived. It's not actually real money. It's not these fractional reserve banking systems where you got to have you put in $1 in your reserves, you can loan out 10. We can't do that.
Well,
that's fraud if an individual does it. But these banks have it set up so where they can do it themselves like this, right?
No, so that's actually shortcutting. If you deposit $1 and the bank, fractional reserve says the bank can lend 90 cents of it, but then of that 90 cents, that's spent, borrows it for some reason, like they're building a hamburger restaurant, and he spends it on contractors. The contractors deposit that 90 cents, and then the bank can lend 81 cents out of that. So at the end of the day, you end up with a 10x, assuming a 10% reserve ratio, you end up with a 10x increase. But at every step of the way, you have a fresh new deposit where there is $10 worth of deposit, like the $10 worth of assets are backing.
So you're okay with fractional reserve banking, in other words, right?
Well, there is a problem with this, but it's not as simple as it just multiplies things, not in that way. But the point I'm trying to make here is if you cancel all the debt, you cancel all the things that people consider to be money, and then everyone's broke. And what you do ultimately, and Keynes talks about this as a way to overthrow the capitalist order. He says you break all the sacred bonds of creditor and debtor. Mm-hmm. You just destroy all those relationships. It's like going around voiding every contract, voiding every loan. And now, for those who have borrowed to buy real assets, of course, for them, it's a massive free money fest for them. Imagine you borrow $1 million and you buy a house, and then they say your debt's forgiven. You now got a free house. Mm-hmm. But you should all remember there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. In order for you to get something without paying, that means somebody else gets to pay without getting something. So somebody else has just lost his life savings that he deposited in the bank, but the bank lent you in order to buy that house. So you destroy the bonds of civil society ultimately, and there's going to be an enormous sense of how unfair it all is, not to mention everyone's going to be broke, and things like food distribution. I mean, if you thought food distribution had problems with just a little bit of COVID lockdown, just imagine food distribution when they say all the money, all the bank accounts are destroyed. Mm-hmm. It's a really bleak scenario that I think we don't want to go there.
So, my thought is that I feel like if we can have some real breakthroughs and some innovation where the state has a religious aura for people. There are a lot of folks right now who they say, look, I'm free market, but I want to have a Social Security, got to have Medicare, got to have Medicaid, got to have universal health care. Or they'll say, hey, look, I like business, but, look, our planet's blowing up and all this. So we got to have climate change policy, or they'll say, the world is fraught with danger in the Middle East, so we have to be over there and maintaining expansionary foreign policy to the tune of $1 trillion a year. So those are debt increasing beliefs that the public have, right? So if you
they want to have their cake. They want to have their cake and eat it too.
Right, but they won't change until market innovators come out and say, hey, you know that whole problem you're worried about healthcare? We've realized that so many of the solutions, they don't require government insurance or private insurance to afford. Whoa, that changes the frame. Now you don't have to say, oh, sacred state, may you save us from our health problems. Oh, sacred state, would you socialize this whole expensive situation? You don't need it. If you can do therapeutic ketosis, you don't need that $10,000 a pop patented chemo drug for a certain illness, you see? And the same thing goes for energy. If you don't have energy, you don't have to go pay the toll at the gas pump every day, and then the toll at the electric bill at your house, and the toll of the cost of your food that's built in with transportation fuel for the truck that delivered it. If that can be run by ocean water, or that can be run by radical technologies that are very difficult to meter in any expensive way, how does that change psychologically people's tolerance for an expansionary state? In my opinion, I think it would make people say, you know, I don't, just like we used to use you to do voodoo incantations thousands of years ago to prevent famine and plague. We don't need you for that anymore, and we don't need you to do healthcare, and we don't need you to do energy, and we don't need you to save the planet, and we don't need, and it changes the human species approach to this institution that we call the state, such that you don't need it as much involved in your life. And I think that could open up a whole opportunity for prosperity, you know.
I certainly think it can make us better off. I mean, I think everybody would argue against that. But I think there's a whole movement on the left, what they call the post-scarcity society, and some of the big arguments that persuade even in Silicon Valley, or so-called universal basic income. Karl Marx said to each according to his need. Is that, well, it's going to be a post-scarcity society. There's going to be need for very many jobs. Therefore, everyone just has to be given those few stewards of the nation's capital, producing so much with so little labor. They should just pay everybody a stipend. And so there's an argument that the richer we get, the more we can do socialism. So I'm not sure that it persuades people not to look to the state to produce somebody to give to somebody else. I think it buys us time. Obviously, it makes us sincerely more prosperous. And as I said, I personally look forward to faster than planned travel. Because I just, it's before COVID, I was doing so much travel, but anything that can cut down on the time it takes for me to get somewhere is a game changer for me. And everything you mentioned, if there was a pill that cured cancer, all these things would be great. And that can extend the human life expectancy. There's a lot of good that will come out of it, no question about it.
Well, very good. Keith Weiner, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Monetary-metals.com is his website. Thanks for joining us, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
Back in just a moment. David Ganoski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended by full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents. The law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for their loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's a way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Here's one thing you can scratch off your to-do list without going anywhere, without any out-of-pocket cost to you, and even get up to $150 cash back. Get that crack in your windshield fixed by calling Auto Glass America. They'll come to you, and with comprehensive insurance coverage, there's no cost to you. Call Auto Glass America now and fix that pane in the glass with premium glass and a lifetime warranty. Call 813-96-GLASS, 813-96-GLASS. Auto Glass America.
Our monetary system is full of negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, where a dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option, monetary metals. They pay interest on gold, in gold, with no storage costs ever. There's an interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski. And, we had an interesting discussion with Keith Weiner just now about, can the forces of productivity, creativity, of nonviolence, of win-win solutions, can they unleash enough prosperity and wealth and peaceful culture to overwhelm the other side of our humanity, which wants to tear down, which wants to be driven by envy? We have a society that is flirting with de-civilization ideas, things that have been the domain of arrogant, rich, corporate communist academics have now trickled down into the mainstream of conversation on leftist ideology. They want to attack the foundations of wealth, of private contract. Contract is a collusion. It's a conspiracy against the oppressed. Their whole narrative is all about oppressed versus oppressor. But they don't want to let you know that they're the oppressors masquerading as oppressed. That any folks who want to tear down private contract, private property, non-violence, that means you're not initiating violence to get your way. They don't want to have that. They want to normalize the initiation of violence for anything they don't like. Any speech, any attempt at self-defense, any attempt to hire who you want to hire, create the kind of business you want to have, develop medicine, develop innovations, create a cheaper way or a higher quality way of building a home. They want to stamp out innovation because at the end of the day, that represents a side of our humanity that we're always at war at. Will we shrink to that lower level, that lower resolution that is driven by fear and hate, envy and resentment? Or will we rise up and reclaim our birthright, which is our God-given liberty, which is our family-friendly societies, where we don't have to fight tooth and nail over scarce resources, but we can build the kind of future where we can all win and we don't have to rely on the false song of envy to feel better. I'm David Gronowski. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.